We as humans often forget that our biggest enemy is the person we see in the mirror daily. This is something people who have it all seem to forget. Just like that, many fighters often forget that their minor mistakes could ruin their whole career. Let's have a look at all the fighters who had promising careers but ended up ruining them due to their own mistakes. Let's get started. First up, Nick Diaz, the MMA fighter who could have it all. Nick Diaz surely had a big, bright, shining future ahead of him, and even today, everyone considers him a legend in the MMA world. With so much potential and talent, many things went wrong while Diaz aimed to be better at fighting. Things started going downhill for Nick in 2005 when he threw his shoe at Diego Sanchez. This was the first time everyone thought that the young Diaz they knew was a bit off. He was set to face the Ultimate Fighter winner Diego Sanchez, and this misstep could have been avoided. Right before the fight began, he reportedly went to Sanchez's locker room and decided to hurl a shoe at him. Ironically enough, the sick kicks didn't work during the fight, and Sanchez won. After the fuss about him throwing the shoe at an opponent burned down, Diaz again became the center of controversy. In 2006, he picked a fight with Joe Riggs, the former WEC middleweight champion and UFC welterweight title contender. Apparently, he kept taunting Riggs throughout the game, and later on, when they were sent to the hospital, things got murky. And then the worst happened. After losing to Sanchez and Riggs, the former MMA fighter also lost to Sean Shrek. After 3 failed fights, he was briefly released from the UFC. However, after being brought back, his first fight was against Takanori Gomi, the top lightweight fighter. Surprisingly enough, he won this fight, and it would have been considered the biggest hit throughout his career, but things again went wrong, and the win was changed to a no contest. He was also suspended for 6 months. Why? Because he tested positive for marijuana. After this, his career was always a mess up until 2015, when his career as an MMA fighter ended officially. He did return to fighting in 2021, but honestly, nothing's the same anymore. Next up is Mike Tyson, who ruined it by being part of controversies. There's no lie in saying that Mike Tyson was and always will be one of the greatest fighters. However, we can't deny the fact that his whole career was marred with controversies either, and these controversies actually became the reason for fall from grace. He started his career back in 1990, and it looked like no one could ever stop him for a year. But a year later, his reputation was tainted because he was arrested on molestation charges, convicted, and was handed 10 years in prison. Tyson served 3 years in jail and 4 years on probation. After that, he returned to the ring, but even this time, he didn't bother becoming a model citizen either. Soon after returning during his fight against Evander Holyfield, this heck of a guy bit his opponent's ear off. What does that even? His bizarre actions didn't end there. In another bout, he was seen making weird comments about how he wanted to eat Lennox Lewis's, his opponent's, children. And these comments only fueled his opponent. When the two stepped into the ring, Lewis knocked him out. In fact, ended Tyson's competitive career. We call that karma serving right. Not just that, even when he was away from the ring, things weren't any better. He earned a lot of money throughout his controversial career, but it was of no use because he wasted it all, on women and illegal substances. All the controversies he was a part of came together, and that's how his boxing career finally ended on a sour note. Today, he isn't really a respectable member of the boxing community, and we totally understand why. But we'll have to say that Tyson somehow managed to gain quite some media success. Apart from that, Josh Grisby didn't do justice to his career either. We all know how good the MMA star Josh Grisby was before he got arrested on different charges, including domestic abuse and improper handling of firearms near underage people. At the time when all this happened, Grisby was enjoying the peak years of his career. He was young, talented, and knew how to bring down any opponent. The journey he started as a teenager went to drain after he assaulted his wife and even trying to get her attacked by his dog. His wife, Caitlin, somehow managed to escape and hid in another nearby house. The MMA star was arrested, and the texts he sent to his wife became evidence of domestic abuse. Even though he recently returned to fight again, Josh is not as popular as he used to be. He once was a legend. Now he's just someone who abused his significant other. Well, look how the tables turn. Next on this list is Jesse Taylor, whose addiction messed it all up. Taylor is often referred to as the man who could have been a champ, and honestly, we agree with it. A few years ago, Taylor got famous for reasons we believe he never wanted. After he made it to the semifinals of The Ultimate Fighter Season 7, Dana White removed him from the show right before the finale. He was now disqualified. However, a door for CB Dollaway opened to make his way back into the competition, only to lose against Amir Sadullah once again. Many thought that this disqualification would be the end of Jesse's career, but little did everyone know that something even worse was what had caused the whole mess. During a conversation with Dana White recently, Taylor confessed that he was an alcohol addict, and the struggle to get his life back is still going on. He also unveiled that he's disappointed in himself and that he's sad that his addiction only caused him to lose all his dreams. This makes us feel bad because he was such a good fighter that White even gave him another chance and took him back into the UFC. And then there's Brian Bowles, and his love for getting arrested got him nowhere but jail. Brian Bowles started his career quite elegantly, reached rarefied air in 2019 after achieving the WEC bantamweight title, but then drugs got in his way. He and his associate were arrested on charges of felony and multiple drug offenses, including possessing methamphetamine. Not just that, right when he began fighting for championship titles, he failed the test for performance enhancers, and that's how the end of his career began. He was tested way over the allowed ratio of the certain drug. This led to the police checking his house in Georgia, and boom, everything was a disaster. After coming out of jail, he tried to make a comeback. However, nothing really added up for him, and now he's retired. Well, good for him, we guess. Next up is Paul Kelly, who, after spending 6 years in prison, announced retirement. 2013. Yes, that was the year when Kelly ended up in a very bad situation. Well, a very bad one. Paul Kelly surely had a bright future, and it could have been true, only if he hadn't gotten into the narcotics business. The remarks at the case of his judge past are still considered iconic. Judge Mark Brown had sentenced the MMA star to 13 years in prison and said that in his judgment, he should have decided to supply Class A narcotics after his UFC contract and terminated. He continued by saying that Kelly enjoyed the high life and experienced selling illegal substances as the best way to make easy money. Apparently, Kelly and his partners were supplying narcotics all around the UK with the help of local dealers. However, the former MMA star did have a few disputes about his case. According to him, he had stopped living that lifestyle back in 2008, but no one really agreed with what he said, and that's how the era of Paul Kelly came to a sad end. Last but not least is Derek Chisora. Once upon a time, there was a Derek Chisora, a top British heavyweight prospect who let his whole career drown in the sea of his anger. Even though we still see him now and then, he's not as popular and successful as he used to be a few years back. He's still famous for having beef with almost everyone, and ironically is managed by David Haye, who was once his worst enemy. His stupid antics and anger issues were his worst enemies, and we wonder how successful he would have been if he only kept his eyes on what he was supposed to do. There's no way we can explain how this man just brought his whole life down because of all the unnecessary acts of anger, violence, and language abuse he's charged with outside the ring. Maybe it's a sign for all of us to think over our decisions when trying to make it big. And with this, it's time for us to wrap this video up. Let us know what you think about these figures who ruined their careers in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We'll be back with more amazing videos soon. See you in the next one.